The political opponent on the other side is not simply wrong anymore. They're evil, depending on what side you're on.
Yeah.
Your political opponent is evil, uh, and must be defeated not through the democratic process, like the Constitution argues, and not defeated in the marketplace of ideas, like the Greeks espoused through debate, but must be destroyed. And in this case, murdered, executed publicly. So that's where we've descended. There was, I think, a time when there was some debate going on, maybe in the 70s. I don't know. Maybe I'm even wrong about that. But now, because there's such a schism and we're so polarized that there's just this sense that your opponent isn't just wrong in terms of their ideology, but they're evil and must be destroyed. And I would also, and I want your thoughts on this, but what I've noticed too, though, the extreme left seems to be operating based on almost a militaristic hatred, whereas the right, and I'm gonna put myself in that category, the right, even though I'm reluctant, we tend to be, though, zealots in terms of we know God, we know self-righteousness. That's the part that I don't like about the right. The self-righteousness, we know God, you don't, right? And that's a zealot position too, right? But the left, though, tends to be very hateful, just very using the word Nazi all the time, fascist all the time, just as a generic word without really not understanding the implications of what fascism is. Fascism resulted in the annihilation of 40 million people or more in World War II.
Yeah.
So when somebody calls somebody a fascist, remember, you're talking about, I'm telling you that you're responsible for 40 million people dying, maybe more. Anyway, I just think debate's dead because it's no longer your ideas are wrong. You personally, my opponent, depending on what side you're on, you're evil and you must be destroyed. Now that's a scary place to be in America. I think that's where we're at. Good day, everybody, and welcome to another iteration of Inside Reality. I'm Jeffrey Candelaria. This is Jimmy Tran. He produces the show. He incepted and created the show. And we appreciate it if you'd share the show or comment, like. If you dislike, that's fine. Ironically, that's kind of what we're going to be talking about is debate, in my view, is dead. Debate is dead. We just witnessed the public execution of Charlie Kirk, who I didn't particularly care for personally. And I'm a conservative, I guess, but I didn't care for his style. I thought he was extremely provocative, but he did at least invite debate, and he was open about it. He put himself right into the debate line. But I didn't particularly care for the guy personally, but I respected him, and I certainly don't and did not celebrate his death. And I'm going to share a story later in the podcast about something that happened this week that was very disheartening. But today we're going to talk about debate is dead, and I have a solution, and it's probably going to be quite provocative, but so be it. So Jimmy, we witnessed the public execution of a conservative. I thought he was a bit of a religious zealot. I'll be honest with you. I didn't appreciate that he was always throwing God into everything, but at least the guy had the courage to put himself into the fray and accept ideological opponents, and he would debate them openly in front of thousands of people. I respected that, but he was a fanatic and a zealot. Let's not deny that.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, so as far as I'm concerned, what happened is definitely an atrocity, unimaginable.
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
and even if you disagree with the person, I mean, because I know that sometimes, we like to kind of frame things a certain way, in the public discourse. But regardless of whether he's a zealot or not, in my opinion, that doesn't matter. There's plenty of zealots out there, and they have every right to speak, especially here in the United States. I mean, if we really, really value freedom of speech and especially
We don't.
That's a whole other matter. And then
That's what we're talking about today.
We definitely talk about that.
Free speech is dead in America. That's the whole point I'm making. There is no such thing as free speech in our country.
It's been dead
today.
for a while.
Maybe there never was. You're wrong. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think we both agree, though, that I think we both actually agree kind of generically that debate is kind of dead. I think we also agree that to celebrate the public execution of a zealot is absolutely wrong.
Well,
and those people that celebrate his death, they're simply really evil human beings.
Yeah.
Because I thought about it a lot, this whole thing over the last couple of days.
Yeah, as have I, and truth be told, I mean, when you said, because you keep saying, the zealot, and I agree that's he has zeal for his beliefs and so forth. I mean, we shouldn't really be celebrating even if it wasn't, but then you can say, well, there's also the zealot on the other side too, that, and
a zealot killed him. And a zealot was murdered.
Was murdered. Yeah. So there's both sides. Yeah.
That were part of this unfortunate Shakespearean tragedy, which it really is. It's a Shakespearean tragedy. It's Lady Macbeth, the end of Macbeth. Everybody dies at the end. So but my bigger point, and I think what we're saying a couple of things. And I like your thoughts, but I think debate's dead. I don't think there's free speech in America. I don't think there ever really was, and I'll argue that point throughout the podcast. This is Inside Reality. We're talking about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And the other thing is, though, those that celebrate his death, his public execution, call it what it is, public execution. I have no empathy for people that celebrate, because I thought, I don't like Obama. I don't like Kamala Harris. I can't stand AOC. But to see her publicly executed, I wouldn't celebrate that.
Exactly. That's the difference, I think. Well, that is, I think, the big differentiator of what we're seeing right now that's unfolding. I mean, like, for instance, the first thing I thought of when I heard this was, what with Bobby Kennedy, right? I mean, when he was assassinated. I mean, he was a public figure. Of course, Martin Luther King was the other one. And I know we've talked about that in the previous podcast where you were alive when Bobby was assassinated. And during that conversation we had, we were talking about how extreme and are we really at that moment, right? So I'd like to get your...
I think it's worse.
You think it's worse?
So 1968, I was a little kid. That was like the worst year in American history from my life, in my lifetime. The worst year in American history for me was 1968. And I was a little kid, but I could just sense the tension,
Sure.
This is much worse, though, because I would argue, and today we're essentially putting forth as a provocative mantra on the show, labeling it, debate is dead in America. So the difference is, kind of like in 1968, your political opponent, because there are now two sides, definitely two sides.
Yep.
The political opponent on the other side is not simply wrong anymore. They're evil, depending on what side you're on.
Yeah.
Your political opponent is evil, and must be defeated not through the democratic process, like the Constitution argues, and not defeated in the marketplace of ideas, like the Greeks espoused through debate, but must be destroyed, and in this case, murdered, executed publicly. So that's where we've descended. There was, I think, a time when there was some debate going on, maybe in the 70s. I don't know. Maybe I'm even wrong about that. But now, because we're there's such a schism, and we're so polarized that there's just this sense that your opponent isn't just wrong in terms of their ideology, but they're evil and must be destroyed. And I would also, and I want your thoughts on this, but what I've noticed too, though, the extreme left seems to be operating based on almost a militaristic hatred, whereas the right, and I'm gonna put myself in that category, the right, even though I'm reluctant, we tend to be, though, zealots in terms of we know God, we know self-righteousness. That's the part that I don't like about the right, the self-righteousness. We know God, you don't, right? And that's a zealot position too, right? But the left, though, tends to be very hateful, just very, using the word Nazi all the time, fascist all the time, just as a generic word without really not understanding the implications of what fascism is. Fascism resulted in the annihilation of 40 million people or more in World War II.
Yeah.
So when somebody calls somebody a fascist, remember, you're talking about, I'm telling you that you're responsible for 40 million people dying, maybe more. Anyway, I just think debate's dead because it's no longer your ideas are wrong. You personally, my opponent, depending on what side you're on, you're evil and you must be destroyed. Now that's that's a scary place to be in America. I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, and if we were to string the history of it together, I don't think that I mean, in many respects, this has been pented up in for a long time, and certainly this is the moment, the breathing moment right now. So I think that one of two things can happen, right? Where we come to a realization that we've crossed a certain line, and that we then now find ways to, I mean, that's part of why I conceived of this podcast and all. It was to try to encourage conversation. Now, as you know, I mean, Charlie Kirk, I mean, he's provocative.
He encouraged conversation when he was
that?
publicly executed. He encouraged public conversation. He was publicly executed for it.
And that's the one thing that I think a lot of people are pausing on, at least the ones that have some sense, right? The ones that are still caught up in their political biases or in their whatever, what you're talking about. I think those people are having the hard time of coming to that realization, right? I mean, just like I was saying before, when there's a thing called cognitive dissonance, right? There's
Dissonance,
yeah.
Dissonance.
Okay.
Anyway.
Dissonance. Okay.
Well, we try to be correct on the show.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that the power of belief is monumental, which is why it's so easy to manipulate when you have a belief. I mean, we've all been there where we believe in something. And I think Mark Twain was once, I mean, he was the one that says, what is worse is when you believe something, but it ain't so, and come to, that part is where a lot of things happen. And I think that, people respond very differently. I mean, in my world, personally, when I've had those encounters, I tend to be more self-destructive, right? And I end up kind of self-sabotage. I mean, that's my way of dealing with it, when I find myself in those moments. And so I've learned from it, and I've catch myself, and when I see that pattern of behavior, I kind of unravel that to see, well, why is it? Now, not everybody goes through that. I mean, and certainly in this case, we're dealing with a situation where, regardless of whether you believe, regardless of whether you accept what this person say or not, right? I mean, certainly he didn't say, what do you call it?
Remind people what you're talking about.
He didn't call for violence.
Well, he didn't call for what you're talking about. Who's he?
Okay, Charlie Kirk. Okay, I mean,
we're talking about debate is dead in America.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we got to remind everybody what we're talking about, because we go off on tangents. Let's stay focused today.
Sure. so his program, I mean, the tour he was doing was Prove Me Wrong, right? And so he was like, okay, let's debate. Let's have a public debate over your idea and my idea and see where we're at, right? And like I said, I don't follow him, but once in a while his stuff will show up, and and I watch it, and sometimes I'll agree with him and sometimes I don't, and that's just how things go, you know. And I know that he's gaining a lot of attention, but not only that, but I think that part of it too is that he was also gaining a lot of like people were starting to really begin. I mean, I think that that's the other side of it too, is that there were people that were starting to really come to terms with things that he was talking about and actually making changes. And so that's also a threat to whatever systems that he was really kind of exposing, if you will, right? And so we want to kind of go down that kind of path as well. I mean, there's some what they call conspiracy theory, path as well, because I think that he does skirt on that line a little bit at times in some of the things that he talks about. Certainly on college campuses, and we can both agree that college campuses are quite different than the world, obviously, for one, but two, they have a greater number of in terms of liberal thoughts. I mean, that's really where
but the
most
colleges
of it,
have always spawned liberal thoughts.
correct.
There's nothing unusual about it, but the difference
Yeah.
is people like Charlie Kirk who made the mistake of, and by the way, facts are negotiable, perceptions are not.
Sure.
Okay. So facts are negotiable. If somebody believes something, it trumps, no pun intended, facts.
Yeah.
The mistake Kirk made, prove me wrong. The word proof intimates analytics.
Sure.
Most people aren't going to use analytics. So his whole premise was wrong. So in a way, while he didn't deserve to be publicly executed, if I were to go into a college campus, I would not have said as a mantra, prove me wrong.
Yeah.
I would have said something like, bring your emotions or your mind to this debate. And in either case, let's have an emotional and or mindful analytical debate. Because people mostly operate today, in my view, maybe always have, with emotion before analytics.
Absolutely.
And
well, that's
and
human condition, though.
And what I really want you to talk about, though, is my solution, because I just think debate's dead. I think we're too dichotomized. I think both sides are indoctrinated. It's almost a religious experience for the Republicans, which is really sad, because I'm not a big believer in the church or any of that. I do believe in the Holy Spirit, kind of a spiritual dimension to the experience in the universe. But I am absolutely not a proponent of the church or any of that institutionalism. And as a Republican, it reviles me when I hear people just always using God all the time. Like, oh, we know God, you don't. So that's the part I don't like. The other side is you're a fascist, you're a Nazi. Obviously, I'm grotesquely reviled by that. My solution, let's have two different countries, man. Just like before the Civil War, obviously you had the South and North. Obviously, I'm not espousing slavery. Just divide the country, or, declare this state tends to be more family, self-reliance, productive, work ethic. The other state, blue, whatever. Just divide the country, man. Divide it up. And those that want to live as quasi-conservatives, the split side of that, I guess you can tolerate that. But those that want to go with the LGBT and 10 genders, and I want to be a giraffe today, and no criminals, right? No penalties for criminals, right? Right? No prisons.
Yeah.
Have two countries. Why not? I mean, is that too radical a thought, Jimmy?
I don't think it's a radical thought. The question is really how would you even go about?
How do you execute that? How do you execute
first off,
it?
is how you would even execute that, for one, because
Yeah.
the dividing lines are different. I mean, like, for instance, I guess in a way you're talking about like the Berlin Wall, right? I mean, where you have the communists on the side, one side, and then the the Western,
but
West.
no, I'm
No?
not.
You-
That's the don't.
Okay.
No way, I'm not, because the Berlin Wall was policed through a military
Yeah,
apparatus.
but that's the only
I'm
way
not-
that you're
I'm-
going to maintain.
I'm saying have the country divided.
separation.
If you want to live on one side, you don't like it there, you go the other side, you can go there, whatever. But
Okay,
I
so
just
so
don't
you
thi-
can still you
I
can
guess
still
my point
travel.
is this: irreconcilable differences ideologically, because it's a religious experience. It's almost like we have two religions now, red and
Yeah.
blue,
Yeah,
and they're
that's
two,
it.
and they're
That
and
is
they're
true,
two.
though.
It's almost like the Jewish religion and the Islamic religion. They're irreconcilable,
Mm-hmm.
and I just think you have the blue world and the red world. I'm really purple, so
Yeah.
I would probably move to the red world for a while. I probably wouldn't like it very much because of the whole, we know God, you don't, and I might go to the blue part. I don't know.
Well,
But
maybe.
I-
But what about three state? I mean, then you got the purple
okay,
state too.
maybe
I
a
mean,
purple. Yeah, okay. I'm
I
just
mean,
suggesting
yeah.
that debate is dead. I think
Yeah.
it's irreconcilable. I'm a very cynical person, so I don't think it's redeemable. I don't think there's a ideological redemption happening. Do you? Do you think there's a ideological apocalypse of some sort?
I think that there's moments, right? And I think that this might be one of
You don't
those
run a
moments.
country on moments. You can't
No,
run a
no,
country on moments.
no. It's not about running a country, but I'm just saying that as a society, as a civilization,
Well, you don't run a
we-
society
we-
based
we-
on moments of enlightenment.
well, we do. I mean, well, we may not, but what I'm saying is that will lead to shifts and changes. That I mean, if there's enough people that come to a certain realization that hey, this is not working.
By the
yeah,
way,
I mean,
let me make some. I need to make this point because this is a public forum.
Sure.
I'm not. Let me be clear. I'm not advocating
for violence.
I'm
we're
not advocating for revolution. I'm not advocating for insurrection or sedition. I need to be clear on that. I need to be
Yes.
clear.
And
because
neither am I.
We're just talking about an idea.
Well,
idea.
and this is not the first time that this kind of idea.
You're not espousing for. Say it out loud because I'm sure we're being monitored. Say it
Sure.
out loud. You're not monitoring.
I'm
for,
not. Yeah, I'm not espousing violence or insurrection,
Overthrowing the
or
country?
overthrowing
We're
the
not.
country or anything. That's
We're
not.
not.
That's not what this is about.
We're not.
We're just having a conversation about what is the solution. Then
philosophical conversation.
philosophically, but also has to be translated into. I mean, certainly in years in past, right? I mean, we talk a lot about what has happened in history and what we've learned or not learned in history, and certainly these are the kind of moments in history where revolution and all that stuff does happen, right? I mean, we've seen that throughout history. Certainly, we can say that we are above that, in terms of our enlightenment, and so we don't need that anymore. I mean, if you will think about it, I mean, the idea of the transition of power within the United States really is a bloodless revolution, if you think about it from that kind of framework. Meaning that when it shifts from one ideology to the other, meaning we go from a Democrat to a Republican and vice versa when it comes to the power, meaning that when Obama and when Clinton and the Democratic leadership was in place. I mean, look at when FDR was president, right? He gained 4 terms, okay, because there was no limit to it. And then, of course, the other side said, wait, we can't have that. We can't have that much control by that side of the fence, right? And so then there was that recoil, and so then term limits was then put into place. Even though up until then, the 2 terms was more on an honor system kind of thing, okay? Because we saw George Washington do it, and then based on what he said, this is I've done what I am prepared to do, and now I need to let this go to the next generation and to others to do it, to pick up from here, right?
I think it was Jefferson, the third president, that really made it a standard because
Well,
Jefferson was. was asked to
Yeah.
run a third time, and
And
I
he
think
said
it was
no.
Jefferson
Yeah.
that said no. I've done my duty. I
Correct.
think it was Jefferson that really crystallized the standard, but
It's still a
I'm not.
standard, but again, there's this thing
How
called the
does that
gentleman's.
relate to debate is dead? Our
Well,
topic
here's the
today?
thing. There's this thing called decorum. There's this thing called the gentleman's agreement, right? Kind of a thing, right? Where I could take your word for it, or I'll do what I need to do. It's not like, okay, if I'm going to debate you, I'm going to just beat you to death, right? With my words because I'm more eloquent or whatever. Okay. Usually it's the other way around because sometimes it takes me a moment to kind of punch back with my words because just my brain not always kicking in at the right time. But that being said, I, have seen time and again people, who basically are merciless when it comes to their ability to wield power, whatever that power is. And when they can't wield their power, okay, then they will respond, more in a physical and violent sense.
Well, violence is
Yeah.
the new norm to defeat your opponent. It's
Yeah.
no longer.
Criticizing the person instead of actually debating them on what what was presented, the idea, right? Like you just gave an idea. And I could just say, hey, you're stupid saying that we got to divide this
say
country
it.
or whatever, right?
Doesn't bother me any.
Yeah,
Doesn't
but I'm just
bother
saying
me
that
you call me stupid. I
but
don't
ad
care.
hominem type of attacks like that is pointless, and that's what
Ad hominem.
ad hominem, yeah.
But my solution is that we philosophically consider, again, I'm not espousing revolution. I'm not espousing overthrow of government. I'm saying through peaceful consideration that maybe we start just having to, some thoughts around, why don't we just maybe divide the country? I don't know, divide it up
Well,
peacefully.
Yeah,
And just consider it.
and it can
Because
certainly
I
be
just
done.
think there's too much hatred, there's too much self-righteousness, there's too much violence, and there's too much irreconcilability going on. People today, when I was growing up and I had dates and I was going out with chicks and picking friends and doing things, I can, and I don't like to use the word never because I don't like
Yeah,
that term. I can say never did I pick and choose people because of their political position. It came out later on when we were dating or conversations. But even then, I mean, I dated a lot of liberal women and all that. I was liberal when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
So I'm not a hypocrite. I was, but it wasn't a deal breaker, man. You just okay, well, I don't agree with you. You're going to vote for Nixon or whatever it was. And then you just moved on with your day, man. You moved on. And you would throughout that relationship, you would have those conversations and maybe you'd get a little upset here and there, but you weren't picking and choosing or rejecting friends, potential friends because of their, oh, you voted for Trump, I can't be your friend. That never went on, man.
yeah.
It never went on. And it goes on today as a convention, as a just a moray, social moray. And that's why I just think debate's dead. I think it's irreconcilable, the two sides. So why not just think about, in a peaceful way, maybe we just divide up the country a little and just talk about it. And if we do, we execute documents and build constitutions and do it non-violently, not overthrowing anybody, just think about it. I mean, why can't that just be a consideration? A peaceful, non-seditious, non-violent, I don't want anyone to, again, neither of us are espousing for any of that violent stuff. We're just talk about it. Is that fair to just talk about it or not?
Well, I think that, again, this is also a debate, right? I mean, in terms of, we need to debate whether, debating whether we should divide up the country, for instance, right? And how many pieces do we divide it up?
The debate starts with, are we ever irreconcilable? That's where you start. And I'd say, yes, we are. I think the two sides are irreconcilable.
Well,
do you feel that or not?
I don't know if I feel that we've reached a point of irreconcilability. I mean, I think that I feel like this might be, I mean, I'm a little hopeful that this whole situation, as tragic as it is, might be a turning point, because, like I said, we've seen stuff like this happen throughout history. So it's not like the first time, a situation. I mean, I think that was one of the things that they wanted when Trump's assassination attempt was, made like last year, right, during the campaign and stuff like that. I think that was one of the people that were involved. And I think there's more than just this one individual. I don't think that this is an isolation, meaning that this one guy decided to do it on his own, just go up and do that.
How come we're thinking
okay?
about that? How come the FBI or whatever hasn't revealed the motivations of the assassination attempt in July of 2020, whatever it was, 24, I think it was?
July 24,
Yeah.
13th.
So why hasn't the motivations of that killer been revealed?
Because I think there's more of the type of stuff that's been happening. Same was reason why we're seeing the slow walk of the Epstein files. The same reason why JFK's assassination have been kept, out of, any kind of access. Even the most recent release is not complete. There's still things that are been scrubbed out and left out for various reasons. I mean, so to me, that's what it feels more like that is happening. And I'm not saying here that we'll ever get a true answer to any of these things. I'm just more cynical in that sense. However, I think that sometimes when things like this, like for instance, when Martin Luther King, when he was assassinated, right? What did it do to the world at that time? I mean,
Well, blacks rioted. I don't blame them. Detroit.
yeah, there was riots and all that, but then what was it? There was a turning point. I mean, no pun intended here.
Not really.
You don't
I
think so? You don't think that there was a turning point?
Nixon was elected. What are you freaking talking about?
Yeah.
If you know anything about history, you're wrong, dude. Martin Luther King, who was basically a liberal Democrat, no problem.
Sure.
Espousing
Yeah, that's fine.
nonviolent resistance.
Yeah, nonviolent.
And civil rights.
Civil rights, yeah.
Was assassinated in April of 68.
Correct.
Nixon
And
was
then-
elected in November of 68.
And then
They
Bobby
couldn't be
was
more They couldn't be. Well, Bobby, he was out of the equation because he was killed. Nixon couldn't be more diametrically opposed to MLK
Integration and all that.
Yeah, so what are you talking about? It didn't. Nixon was overwhelmingly elected, by the way.
Okay.
No, that's not true. Let me stand corrected. He beat Humphrey. It was a close election, but Nixon
The
still
second
won.
one.
And
Yeah.
then the second time, 72, he won 49
He
of 50
won.
states.
Yeah.
McGovern was like overwhelmed. It was.
Yeah.
It was an embarrassment, really.
Sure.
But Nixon won within 6 months of Martin Luther King being publicly executed.
Yeah.
So
Was he?
I'm not sure what
was
your
that a
point
public?
was.
Well, my point is that
Well, he
that
was in a
there's-
hotel lobby or something, just like at
Yeah.
the patio of a lobby or not a lobby. He was outside his room.
Yeah,
one
yeah,
of those
but
little,
it wasn't in the limelight.
no, he
like
wasn't making a
Charlie
speech,
was.
but he
And-
was
yeah.
outside with his. I think.
Now
What's
was
the name of
JFK's
Yeah.
was JFK's assassination, was that
He was
televised?
he was in the Ambassador Hotel claiming victory. He was going to go on to, I believe, Illinois or
Yeah.
California. He just won
It
California.
was in California when it happened with
but
Bobby.
he had just
But-
concluded a speech. He was
Yeah.
walking through a kitchen out to his limo, and he was assassinated after the speech. As he was being ushered outside the dais from the public situation into a kitchen area, and he was assassinated there by allegedly Sirhan Sirhan.
Sirhan, yeah.
Right.
So to me, like I said, there's many more weavings in this than just what is the public narrative, okay, or what we're allowed to know. And to me, until we deal with that, I don't think that. I mean, because to me, some of this stuff is really tied together. I know that I came across
So
something.
you're
that,
arguing today. We're talking about debate is dead. Okay,
Yeah.
That's keep focused. So you're
Yeah.
arguing that if we knew more about JFK's assassination definitively, or if we knew more about the motivation behind the attempt on Donald Trump, that we'd be a more civilized, less dichotomized society? I don't see that. What, make your
Well,
point. I don't see that. How is that going to make us more tolerant of true debate and tolerant of the other side? Republicans tolerating blues, blues tolerating Republicans. Let me make this
because
point real quick.
okay,
Republicans are just as adamant about their owning their
sure.
position as
That-
the other side.
Yeah, and I
I'm
don't
a
have
Republican.
yeah,
I'm a
and I don't
reluctant
have
Republican.
and I don't have problems with the respective sides holding to their position because they feel that they're right or they feel that they
But get
have
back
the-
to my
the fact-
question. How does knowing more about these motivations make us a more civilized, debate tolerant society?
Well, because I think that, well, it may not directly with respect to making it more debate tolerant. However, if we come to a realization that our strings are being pulled, I think and we come to terms with that. All right, that's why I take my. I'll be honest with you. I mean, if I was younger, I would be much different, right, in terms of how I feel about this. But aside from the tragedy part, of course, I'm just saying that on the political stuff. But because I have, come to certain realization that there are powers that are, and controls mechanisms that are in place, I take things that I see with a lot more of that grain of salt, so to speak. Today's topic is the debate dead? I think Jeffrey thinks that we've reached a point where we're no longer able to debate and come to any reconcilable resolution in terms of our disagreement. I guess for me, I'm a little more hopeful, holding out a little bit, when it comes to people coming to certain realizations. And I think that I feel like where we're at is more at a shift. And if we take advantage of this, because I think that there are people on the left as well as on the right coming to a certain realization that, hey, what's happening and what's going on. And now, to be fair, most of the violent talk has been coming from the left, more the extreme left. Okay, so that's just what the statistics have shown. So, I mean,
Not just the statistics. The left zealot just murdered a conservative.
Yeah, that aside, I'm just saying that.
What do you mean? Yeah, and Trump was almost executed twice by two extremists on the left.
Yeah.
So the violence is being demonstrated mostly. And the governor made a really good point of Utah when he said today, I know that by the time the podcast, it'll be whatever, but 2 days after the assassination, the governor said, look what Utahnians did. I forgot what the term that he used. He said, we did not riot. We didn't go in the streets and overturn cars.
Yeah.
We didn't protest violently. We prayed.
Yeah.
That was a really excellent point.
Yeah.
And I recognize Utah is a very Mormon-oriented, quasi-Christian Mormon, whatever the hell state. But you're right. Had a black person of consequence been murdered, publicly executed by a conservative white person, what would have happened?
Yeah.
Violence.
Well,
let's just be honest.
Yeah.
Probably violent in that city.
Yeah, no, and
there was no violence in Utah.
And that's part of the differential.
No violence in Utah.
And that's part of the differential. And it's not even just Utah. I mean, we're talking about, the whole of the United States, really. I mean, because Charlie Kirk was, whom we're talking about here, I mean, he was a public figure across the board. I mean, he's from
but he was in
he's
Utah.
from Phoenix, and he was in Utah at that time, obviously. But what I'm saying is that the people that are on his side, if you will, of the debate, or on his side of the camp, is not out there. You're right, and they're not out there throwing whatever and looting and whatever. So.
Right.
Which is really a to me, probably the most clear example and the whole dichotomy of this whole thing, because if you look at, and you are also right in pointing out that if this had been done, and this had been a different configuration, we would have all hell breaking loose, and the very
If it had been, let's say it out loud, okay? Don't say configuration. Say it directly, okay? I want you to say it. If a white guy would have killed a prominent black political figure,
okay.
that's what you're trying to say when you say configuration. I believe that there would have been a completely different riotous outcome after the fact. Good, bad, or ugly.
Yeah.
I just think it would have expressed itself violently. This guy was a conservative avatar for most Republicans and conservative right people.
Yeah.
And he was publicly executed, and there was no violence. No violence.
Yeah.
That says a lot about that particular side.
Yeah.
And I'm not always defending the right, the red, because I'm very critical of their self-righteousness and we own God and you don't, that I've talked about earlier in the show. But I will say the civility expressed in Utah by the conservative Republicans after the public assassination of their avatar is something that I do respect and admire.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm not using the language that you're trying to get me to say is not because I don't want to, okay? It's more because it's not helpful, for one. And two, that black and white is not always that way either. Meaning that if this was a black conservative, okay, being executed, you would have more of the same response like we have, okay? So really what I'm pointing out is that if it's somebody on the left side, at least that's what we've observed, okay? I mean, based on the pattern, I mean, yes, some of the the more extreme white supremacist people might go on a rampage or whatever, but they're, I'm not saying that won't happen. I'm just saying that just based on the pattern that we've seen in at least the last decade or so, or last 20, 30 years, that has been the case.
What I'm saying is this.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is this. Debate is dead
Yeah.
in America, in my view, overall. And I'm also saying something else. The extreme population on the left can say anything with impunity.
Correct.
They can say anything with impunity. White people can't jump. White people can't swim. White people are Nazis. White people, whatever they can say whatever the hell they want. But if a white person, I'm not a white guy. I'm not white. I'm Hispanic. But if a white person that has prominence in this country, a banker,
Yeah.
says called a black person a Nazi or a Islamic person a fascist, person would lose their job. So that's another difference,
Yeah.
okay? The extreme progressive population in this country, good, bad, or ugly, and I happen to think it's not so good, can speak with much more impunity. That's why there is no such thing as free speech.
Yeah.
Certain people, just like, did you ever read Animal Farm
Yeah.
by your guy Orwell?
Yeah.
Some animals are more, what was it? Some animals are more free than
Yeah.
others, or some animals
Yeah.
are more
Yeah, that was it.
superior than others.
No,
Remember
some animals.
the pigs?
Yeah, we all have freedom of speech, but some speech is more free than others, or something like that.
Something to that
Yeah.
effect. So there are population segments in our society that have more access to free
Yeah,
speech than
absolutely.
others. Just let's be completely honest
That is,
about it.
I could totally.
So you're hiding behind the word configuration.
not
I don't respect that.
I'm not hiding. I'm using it as a more generic phrase to describe that this whole thing is. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of different nuances here, but all that
About 7
all
minutes.
that being said, there's also one other thing too, and that is that I'm actually also glad to see some of these people that are like the commentators that are celebrating this heinous, act.
You're glad to see that?
No, we're glad to see. Let me finish what I was going to say, and don't take me out of context. I'm glad to see that they're being fired from their job because they're either making light of the what had happened, or they're celebrating it, through their expressions and so forth. Okay, so I'm actually glad to see that there's a public retribution, if you will, and the consequence, and it's nonviolent
consequence.
as well. And these are nonviolent. These are just holding them to account for their words of basically, if you're celebrating this death, this execution, this heinous crime, you should be marginalized and so forth. And that's kind of, and so I am glad to see that is happening. But at the same time, though, again, should we have the freedom to be able to say that? Not necessarily to
Say what?
Well, not to be able to express our delight, right? I mean, if we have freedom. Oh no, hold on. Let me finish.
So you're telling me in a society you want freedom of speech to the extent that when somebody is publicly executed, that people should be able to celebrate that. Maybe in a democracy you do.
That's what
Maybe you're right.
That's what I'm saying. What is free speech then? That's my point, right? I mean, if political speech. Now, I'm not saying that advocating for or inciting violence should be allowed, right? Because you can't just yell fire in a crowded, public space or whatever, right? And so, without it actually being a fire, so forth. So there is some constraint to that. I certainly don't think that the hate speech stuff has been helpful, but certainly they're there and we have to deal with it. But so along that same line, I mean, if somebody,
Why should we have to deal with it? Why should we have to deal with it? Why should we have to deal with that kind of vitriolic hate speech? Why?
So you think that it's not okay, or you think it is okay? I mean, that's what I'm saying, is that if there's true freedom of speech.
Completely tolerate hate speech to the extent that your political appointment is evil and should be destroyed, that kind of speech, I don't know that maybe in a real, I guess Socrates, Plato, I'm not sure about Aristotle, but they would have argued that, yeah, you can tolerate that in a democracy. That level of free speech, even as heinous as it is, I don't know that I can do that. I don't know that I can.
So then
that's why I said earlier, we should think about, it's like moving to a different state, peacefully, non-violently. We're not throwing over any governments. We're not saying that. But maybe the country just needs to think about, dividing itself.
Yeah. I mean, certainly have already been divided. The question is, do we stay divided?
Yeah, but we're forced to live with each other.
Yeah.
Populations are forced to live with each other.
That's only all out of pretense at the moment in some cases. But we already have a lot of that, self-segregation, if you will, that is happening, and it has happened in the last,
we can talk about segregation. A lot of that's economic.
Well, some of it is economic, but other things.
Blacks weren't allowed to live in the suburbs because they couldn't afford to, and they were wanting to separate themselves from certain populations.
Yeah.
The white dominant populations.
Yeah, but we're also
we're going off on a tangent again. Debate is dead. Debate is dead. Debate is dead. It's irreconcilable.
But we're in a debate right now whether debate is dead, and I think that yes, there's a certain level of death to debate. Like I said, because we don't practice certain things. Like, for instance, I mentioned before.
But the only reason you and I tolerate each other, well, I'm operating at a different perhaps level, but you have an economic attachment to me. You're tethered to me economically to be successful. That's why you tolerate me.
Really?
So well, I don't know. But let's be completely honest. There's a certain incentivization for us to be tethered together, even though we don't agree a lot.
Yeah.
Although we do agree on other things.
I agree on more things.
I don't think it's probably. Yeah, probably.
So
70-30, I think, something like that.
But
got about 3 minutes.
So anyway, that's the question: is that where is the boundary on free speech? Right. That's always been that's the debate in my mind, and then the other part of this whole thing has to do with the fact that there's a certain, like, when you're debating somebody and you can't argue against their statement, you can't just go, like I said, attacking their whatever, attacking their wife, their children, whatever, right? Things like that.
No,
that's not.
Right.
But that's the thing, is that has not been the norm. In modern times, it's been more, because in history, when people did that, they were discarded. But today, they still have their platform and they get to continue to do that. So it's like, Okay, well,
Well, social media.
so you can make the case
is a
that there was never a
battlefield.
debate anyway.
Social media is a dark battlefield, and
Sure.
people can camouflage behind
Yeah.
it and masquerade behind it. You know what I did this week after this guy was assassinated? I eliminated Facebook. I eliminated it, and I was on that thing for 18 years. It's gone because I don't want to participate in social media. But I'll give you a quick example as we conclude. I thought you used the word configuration to hide behind what you were really wanting to say. So we debated that. We disagreed on that.
Yeah.
But I don't hate
No,
you.
yeah.
I don't want to kill you. I don't want to destroy you.
And you didn't call me
I
an
don't
idiot
want you to-
either, so that's good.
I didn't call you a freaking idiot. So it wasn't ad hominem. I tried to just say what I thought out.
Yeah,
you know,
and
very
that's fine. And
directly.
I explained
and
why.
I still respect
Yeah.
you. And even though I disagree with some of what you say,
Yeah. And
that's what debate should be,
yeah.
man.
And
you know,
and I'm fine with that.
but it's not.
You know, and I'm fine with that. And I explained why I chose the wording instead of the other way that you were wanting me to go there. And I think it's much bigger than just the black against the white and all that kind of stuff. I think that so to me,
Of course it's bigger.
To me,
Of course it's bigger.
The whole thing to me is very primal and very primitive. And this is really partly where I was kind of get to it in one of the other podcasts. If we say that we are enlightened and we are human, right? Human, and we're not animals, right? Then that means that we need to rise up above that. That's how I look at it, right? So this is one of the ways that I deal with, okay? Yes, there are evil people in the world and we got to deal with them. But then not everybody that's out there that we don't agree with or even have bad ideas or even say really horrible things that necessarily are in that camp. So
Well, you're wrong. Once again, you're wrong because to be enlightened means you have to sacrifice certain lustful experiences, certain immediate gratification experiences. You're going to be ridiculed. You're going to be rejected by people that like you.
yeah.
You're going to have to take a risk. And I'm just arguing that most people are not willing to take on that responsibility, that intellectual responsibility, or make themselves that intellectually uncomfortable. That's why we're an irreconcilable country. I'm not espousing for any violence or overthrow of government. All I'm suggesting is, I just think that the debate's dead overall. Overall, with 330 million people plus the illegal aliens, you put all those people in a salad bowl. They're just it's not a good salad anymore. It's not.
Yeah.
So I just think there should be 2 salad bowls. That's all.
Yeah. Well,
And you can interchange between, if you want to go to the one salad bowl, the blue salad bowl, you don't like it there anymore, go to the red, you don't like red, go to the other one, and maybe make a purple salad bowl. But this whole stupid notion that we're one America, American values, which I keep telling you, there's no such thing as shared American values throughout the 330 million
well, that's
plus the illegal aliens. There is no such thing as
well. Again,
Anyway,
the
30
the
seconds.
one thing. I mean,
Debate is dead. Have a good day.
the oneness that you're
Enjoy.
describing, we are 50 countries unified. That's the difference, and that to me is where the lie
Not
began.
unified. I don't think we're unified.
Well, I'm not saying that we are unified. I mean, I'm just when I say unified, I mean unified because we've ratified a constitution and say that is our.
We didn't ratify the Constitution when we were 50 states. We're only like 13 states. So that's another argument we can talk about another time. Utah, New Mexico, California, Texas, Montana, we're not part of that calculation.
Sure, not
I'm telling you, had the Constitution been written today like it was in 18 or 1787,
sure. It would be
completely
totally
different
different.
document.
I get that.
Thank you.
So,
Debate is dead. Have a good day. Enjoy Inside Reality. Thank you, Jimmy.
until the next time when we debate again. All right.
And we don't espouse any violence
That's
or any
right.
overthrow
We
of
don't.
government.
No violence.
So make sure you say no overthrow of
No
government.
violence.
right?
No
Say
overthrow
that.
of government. All right. Yeah.
Have a good day.
I haven't seen
Debate
you.
is dead.
I haven't seen you so apologetic, Jeffrey.
Well, because oh my God, some some horrible person that hates us could,
Yeah.
inside reality was espousing for something really nefarious. We're not. We're just
Hey.
loving, peaceful people.
Hey, you know what?
Love
Freedom of
is bigger than
speech,
hate.
right? Freedom of speech. So,
Wow, that's dead too.
well, you said it never
Enjoy
had,
your
so
day.
it can't be dead if it never was.
That's a good point. You finally made a good point today.
All right. See you later.